Hey you guys, so I want to get started on how you can start getting into healing. If you want to actually make something out of healing, that's up to you. But I want to actually be able to help as much as I can people that really want to get involved and people that don't really have many people to really go to if they have questions about it. I am going to try to cover as much as possible. I took notes just because there's a lot that I want to be able to include in the whole series that I'm making, but I want to just kind of go over the most important thing just to get started, and that is to master yourself. You have to know yourself. You have to know your roots. You have to be grounded within yourself, and you have to be able to expand your own horizons. By that I mean you have to be able to open yourself up to different possibilities than what you were currently used to. And I know that all of us have beliefs that we're stubborn in, and maybe some things that we were just born to, or not really born to, but we grew up and were conditioned to not believe certain things, or to believe other things. So I want to just talk about a few things that are very important for you to know, just so you can at least get more connected with your higher self. I believe that when you expand yourself and you regain your connection to your higher self, it makes a lot of things more possible. Even things that you couldn't even imagine yourself doing, those things begin to look possible because you're connecting with your actual self. Your actual self isn't this. I'm making a YouTube video and this is me talking. However, it's not me. It's just me being a temporary source of information for however many other people are going to see. And then that's before I go on and do my regular thing, right? Or go back to my energies that I'm usually in. So I just want to go ahead and get right into it and just bring up that the first thing you want to do is to do some self-work. Self-work has many different categories, because when you're working on yourself, you are trying to become the best version of yourself, right? And developing yourself and becoming comfortable with that are two different things. You can develop yourself and in the end not be comfortable with yourself at all. So it's important to develop yourself in a way that's authentic to you. And you know when something's inauthentic because you'll feel uncomfortable doing it. And not all things that are comfortable are good for you. It's just that when you are uncomfortable, it just means that you're tapping into an energy that is unfamiliar to you, your natural state. So I would pay attention to what makes you comfortable versus getting involved in things that make you uncomfortable. I think doing things that are uncomfortable is only useful when you're trying to strengthen a muscle, not when you're trying to put on a facade or act as if you aren't something, or act as if you are something when you aren't. So when you do self-work, you want to have self-awareness, right? You want to know that there are certain things that you've went through in your life that you maybe you don't necessarily agree with, or maybe there are things in your life that you have gone through that really changed and molded you into the person that you are today. And maybe some of those things you don't agree with. And when it comes to things like that, where you've realized that you don't agree with them, although it's molded you to be the person you are today, and you may be proud of that, there may be things that block you from actually becoming better. And when you actually become vulnerable with yourself and you become aware of those things and vulnerable, because awareness plus vulnerability um, you are able to extract those parasitic energies that no longer serve you. You're able to see things for what they really are and admit that those things have become a part of you and you no longer want them to be a part of your life anymore. So when you are vulnerable, because I mentioned that vulnerability is one of the most, it's like the most important thing when you're getting into healing, because not only are you healing with the expectation that people will be vulnerable with you, or whatever you're connecting to, you're hoping that there's like a sense of vulnerability, right? But that can't really happen if you're not vulnerable yourself. So the best way to practice vulnerability is to practice honesty, because not all things that you don't have to open yourself up to everything and be vulnerable to everything. Not being vulnerable is just a defense mechanism, and it can serve you, but at the same time, it's just about being honest. So I'll just open up, since you're watching, that a lot of the times, me growing up, I was afraid of being honest and vulnerable because I thought it meant that I was weak. And people would also, I would be put in situations to kind of test this. And a lot of times it would come up that I was weak, It wasn't until years later, me practicing those abilities, maybe even failing at it, but realizing that I even tried, looking at the bigger picture, showed me that I was actually being strong. And the people that were afraid of my vulnerabilities are actually the ones being weak. So I learned that when you're vulnerable, it's only that temporary phase in your life where you will appear weak. It's not in the long term, because people who actually are vulnerable end up doing very well. So also, when you're also vulnerable with people, like, it opens them up and people mirror you. So it makes people feel like they can also open up to you. And you can tell based on like you expressing certain body language. Like if you're expressing certain body language while you're talking to people, then they're going to mirror that. And there's a reason for that. So even if something's not outwardly showing on you, if you have it within you, you'll receive like reflections of that back. And this just goes for everything. And even if you don't see it, readily see it, it's still being reflected back at you. So I just want to make that a point, that it's really important to have that aware. You have to be aware of that and have that drilled into your mind, that everything you feel is going to be reflected back at you. And it can be reflected back at you through the interaction that you're having, to why you're even interacting with this particular person. So vulnerability is probably the most important thing when it comes to becoming self-aware and knowing yourself. I also want to talk about you understanding your impact on other people. So you have to know what kind of energy you bring when you are around other people, or like with yourself. When you're alone with yourself, can you say that you have mostly a positive outlook on life? Or do you feel that you are mostly pessimistic and have a negative outlook on things just occurring on a day-to-day basis? Like, do you complain a lot? Do you actually affirm things out loud to yourself, or just to yourself? Do you actually believe in yourself? Do you actually believe in other people? Do you actually want to do something different? Are you even willing to do something different if the opportunity presented itself? A lot of people think that if they had the opportunity to, they would just take it. And they say that because it sounds good, right? Like, it always sounds good to sound like you're willing to put your best foot forward if it presented itself. But are you willing to do that even if you aren't promised that? Like, can you do it anyway? And this is like a hard thing for people to do initially, because we like seeing results and we like to be rewarded instantly for the efforts that we put out. I can tell you now that there have been a lot of times where I've been completely vulnerable and open to people and did not get that back, or have shown complete honesty and did not get that back. In fact, was put on like I was just singled out for being weak. But then I realized, it doesn't take, it takes time to really realize that you were singled out of something or seen as weak because either those people are weak or because something better was supposed to come into your existence. So it's okay that some things don't work out, especially when you are transforming yourself. You're going to fall out of resonance with things that aren't serving you and things that aren't going to actually help you on the path that you're trying to get on. And people and things and places, family, cats, dogs, they'll just fall out of your energy field. You won't be a match. And our minds take a moment to catch up, because things happen spiritually on levels that we don't understand mentally. It's only after maybe years that we're able to rationalize it and realize that those things happen for a reason. So other things to consider is, how comfortable are you just with yourself, with where you are right now. Before the self-development, how comfortable are you with yourself now? So then you can start working on how comfortable you would like to be with yourself, like how much you would like to grow. It's just being vulnerable and honest with yourself, how comfortable you are with yourself, so then you can get to a state where you feel more confident in your energy. It's important to also own up to who you are. We can't change, we can try to do anything. Like, I have blonde hair, even though you can see that I have brown hair. I have all these different things that I like to change, but in the end, I can't change what's in here. So I have to be okay with that. And all the other faults that I have, where I stutter and I say and like way too much, I can't do anything about it immediately. I can be aware of it and allow myself to be more conscientious of it, but I can't really do anything other than be comfortable with the fact that that's just who I am. And when you present that energy outward, you will see that it is reflected back to you. And regardless of what you think you are, like all those negative thought forms that pop up that make you feel insecure, it's also important to realize that those things aren't you. Those things are just implants. They're implanted from certain standards in our society that float around like thought forms, and then we just kind of grab onto it. We are not conscious that we're grabbing onto these things. It's just like conditioning. We gravitate towards these things because we were conditioned to, and because we think it's the right thing to do. We think it's right to judge ourselves so heavily, to the point where we think that criticizing ourselves is us humbling ourselves, when really it can be us destroying our own self-images. And so you have to become aware of yourself, and also aware of how comfortable you actually are with you. And if you are willing to start being comfortable with yourself, because yeah, you can say, I'm uncomfortable with myself, but you're not supposed to just be okay with that. You're supposed to actually decide that, I am here, but I know that it's not serving me by staying here. If I have the opportunity to change that and have better results in my life, why not? All it takes is a little bit of mental energy. And mental energy is like, it tricks you into thinking that it takes a lot, because you have to go through all of those things that you were conditioned with and all those implants that are putting their own thought forms into your head. But it's really just a decision. And a decision can be hard to make if you do have blockages. And so with the self-awareness and the vulnerability and understanding whether or not you are comfortable with yourself and comfortable with your own awkward and weirdness, then you will find those blockages within you. And it is very important for you to actually try to find the things that you need to heal about you first before you go around trying to do this for other people. It's like, would you trust a chef that doesn't eat his own food? You know, you need to try to do that with you first, because if you don't do it with you first, then you won't understand what it takes. Like, would you trust the personal trainer that doesn't train themselves, or doesn't undergo personal, or hasn't gone through any personal trainer experiences themselves? Like, you probably wouldn't. Like, this person would be very unexperienced, because they haven't done the work necessary to evolve themselves. So how can they evolve you? So I would just encourage you. I'm moving around a lot, I'm sorry, I had an itch. But I would encourage you to actually look into what parts of you are blocked. Like, what parts of your life do you feel uncomfortable with the world, with being vulnerable with? Like, when it comes to you and yourself, what parts of you are you uncomfortable with? And confronting that, so then you understand that those things are blockages, and those things actually can be either removed from your being. You can be healed from it. You know, you can somehow blossom and grow from the experiences that you've gone through. In the end, you're gonna keep experiencing things. So overall, I think that learning to spot your blockages is just you know, you're going to have supernatural growth. You're going to see things happen for you that you didn't think were possible, just because you decided to clear something that was blocking you. Blockages can just like, they can really block you from physical things happening in your life. If you want something physically great, let's say you want to go to, like, for me sometimes, like, for me, I want to go to, I have this little rinky-dink gym in my complex, and they have some equipment there. I'd rather just work out in my own place, because I'm gonna just share this. I have like a pole here, and I do like pole exercises because I really love strength training. But the problem is that maybe I feel uncomfortable being in that rinky-dink gym, possibly around two other people in the same complex. And this is just something I encounter, because it's just like, why am I uncomfortable when I can just go achieve my goal, right? Just get it over with in the full extent that I want to. But I'll stop myself because I'm insecure about being so close in a environment, especially at this time in our lives, like with the like, we know what it is. We don't have to speak about it, right? But it just makes me uncomfortable, and I'm realizing that I'm uncomfortable with how it makes other people uncomfortable. Because if I could, I would just walk in there with no mask and not worry about other people. But I worry about how other people will feel by having a +1 in this small space. So for me to be able to overcome that, I have to get over my fear of not pleasing people. You know, like realizing that I can't please people. If I show up, then it's just gonna have to work for everyone. You know, in the end, they chose the same thing as I did. So I shouldn't stop myself just because I'm having these thoughts and I'm picking up on these thought forms that are floating around, you know? So that's kind of like what you can also think of. I mean, you can have your own way of like becoming aware of your own blocks, but that's how I would do it. Just being honest with the fact that I do feel like this, and most likely I'm just doing this to myself because I think that I'm causing more harm by achieving greatness than good, right? So I'm blocking myself. So are you also open to change beliefs that you currently have? Because for me, I had to change a lot of my beliefs, and I don't see a problem with this for me personally, because I've explored a lot of different types of beliefs. You know, but I like to understand what people believe, not really religiously, just in general. I like to understand where people are coming from, why people feel certain ways, and how they go through life with that mentality. And everyone's different, but for me, I think that it's important not to become so attached to your own beliefs that you're just stubborn. There are certain things that you can become stubborn with only once you've evaluated everything and really decided what serves you and what doesn't. Because if you decide to cling on to things that don't serve you, that actually won't serve you, then you're not making room for other new possibilities. You're just stubbornly holding on to things that won't help you. And opening my belief system, along with the vulnerability and self-awareness, that made it so then I could access my higher self. Like, all those things put together, I was able to expand my mind and expand my consciousness, whatever that is. So I was able to really get to a point where I was comfortable with myself, and I was also willing to see where other people come from and not let that either make me uncomfortable and awkward, and I didn't allow it to distort what I know is true about me. There are certain things that people believe, like there's, if I bring them up, I might just bring up insecurities in the whole collective. But like people who say like, oh, if you have if you can hear your hair in your ear, that means your hair is dry, you know? And then it took me not clinging on to that and really doing more research to understand that that your hair is dry anyway. And if it's not dry, then it's wet because you just wet it with water. And that didn't really make sense. But at the moment when I heard that, I was like, oh, like I have dry ass hair. Oh no, you know, and I got really worried and insecure about my hair, only to have me destroy that belief and realize that like that doesn't actually make sense, because everyone has dry hair when it dries. So it's good to not marry your beliefs until you've really gathered and evaluated the possibilities, you know, enough to have a strong foundation for yourself. So I want to also talk about the different kinds of healers that exist, because there's not just one kind. You know, you can say healer, but then there's like branches. So the first kind that I want to talk about are the feelers. So feelers are the super empathic ones, and also you can have a mixture of a few of these, that's fine, but you may find that you're predominantly one. So there's the feelers. I'm a Cancer ascendant, so I feel everything. I can put my hand against a door and understand what's going on the other side of the door. So the feelers can really pick up on vibes And they are mostly, think of like water, and if there's a disturbance in the water, there's ripples, and I feel like can pick up on those ripples and understand if these ripples are harmonious ripples, or if they are kind of or suspicious ripples, where you're about to get attacked, maybe something sneaking up on you, or you're trying to not be spotted, and then you feel like I want to say like you know what I'm talking about, where you just feel something not right, and you feel something off, and you're just like or maybe not even off, just you feel like something's happening or about to happen, and you just have this unexplainable feeling. And I can't really dive into that because it can be extremely unexplainable. But for people like this, their healing styles involve either crying or laughing. These are the two ways that either make feelers feel better about themselves, or they try to make other people feel better about themselves. Crying and laughing, things that really impact the emotional body or the emotional parts of you. So the other kind of healer could be the thinkers. So thinkers, their healing style could be meditation. Usually for thinkers, like they have a lot to share that could be useful, but for the most part, they believe that if you understand yourself and you're comfortable with it, they know that you'll have an unshakable vibe about you. And as for thinkers, you think of someone who is introverted, just like quiet, but yet that they're comfortable in their quietness. And because of that, you don't feel awkward around them because they've harnessed such a comfortability in their own silence that you can just be you and them. Maybe you barely even notice them or barely know them, and you're just in a room with them, and then you just feel comfortable and safe, and it's okay that no one's saying anything. You know that they're doing their thing. It gives you freedom to do your own thing. They are able to heal people because they are creating such a comfortable space mentally that it's not shaking, it's not causing disturbances or unnecessary vibrations here and there. It's more of a relaxing kind of energy that leads for you to not overthink with your problems. So the meditation's usually the best healing style for thinkers. Then we have speakers. Speakers like to, I'm not someone that likes a lot of speaking. It depends. Like, I'm a Leo moon, so I like to speak sometimes. I like laughing. I like making jokes here and there, but sometimes I notice that when I speak, it can cause, I don't know. But for the speakers, they usually like positive affirmations. And you may find like someone who's a thinker is a speaker, But speakers, if they're trying to heal someone, they will pour like verbal love into someone for them to feel better. They will really try to affirm out loud things, so then they can kind of like remedy their doubts or bring harmonious energy through communication somehow to the people around them or their environment. Speakers really like to help people, since they're very good with soothing people verbally, they're able to actually communicate their thoughts effectively. Maybe not, but whatever they say, they're usually comfortable with the fact that their mouth just has, they're going to pretty much say what's on their mind, and it's okay. And this would make people around them also feel comfortable with saying what's on their mind. So you may even open up a lot to a person that's a speaker. A person that's a speaker even though, like, let's say you may not feel like you have a moment to really think about what they told you, like, in that moment, but you will go, somewhere eventually and recap and think about, like, all the things that they told you, and it'll probably uplift you, and you're like, wow, I really actually needed to hear that stuff, or wow, that person who told me that stuff, I didn't even realize how relevant it was. So I like when I know speakers, because sometimes I am silent, like I can be a silent person sometimes. So I need someone to balance me out. Like, I need someone who's comfortable with speaking. And I notice that a lot of people who are thinkers can be very comfortable with speaking, or people who are speakers are very comfortable with thinking. So I just wanted to bring that up. And for speakers, like, it is positive affirmations or positive reinforcement, or something that involves, like, doing things outwardly, maybe not even speaking. It can just be like art, like getting into like art or some way of expressing yourself. These are the best ways for people like that to heal their traumas or wounds. And so for the last category, it's going to be seers, because seers, we kind of just, if we want to heal from something, we just want to know the truth. It doesn't always have to be the positive truth, but if it's the truth, then we can heal from that. We can heal from the fact that we knew the whole story, and we can get over things a lot faster when people allow us to understand the story. For seers, I'm not too sure like how to explain it, even though I am this kind of person. It's just about seeing authenticity, seeing things and people be honest in who they are, and that makes us feel comfortable, and that makes us want to open up and be more realistic with people and be there for people. And that really fuels us. Even if the truth hurts, it still feels better to know. And for people who are seers, they usually are more honest. Like, telling a lie for a seer is really hard. Like, seers could be very good at manipulating people because they see things that you don't, but by the end of it, they'll just feel guilty because they'll see their own fault before everyone else does, and they may even see that it can catch up to them in a certain time period if they don't come correct. So for seers, it's all about the truth and having people see the truth within ourselves. So I also want to add that, if you're listening still, and you've decided that you have a certain style of healing, like that you're either a feeler, a thinker, a speaker, or seer, and you've reached a point where you're comfortable with yourself, you're aware of who you are, you're trying to bring more to the table for people around you, so then you're not just an empty I guess living corpse on earth. You want to be someone that brings light into people's life, but you also are aware that, like, people have their own baggage and their own will, and they all want to do things according to them. Just know that you can be a vessel for people to hear messages or things that they need to hear, but you don't have to contain those things for yourself. You're not a container. Like, being a container is like you deciding that this person's problems are also yours, when that's not the case. Like, this person's just telling you what they're going through, and it is up to you to know that those things, as they are temporary for you, because you're just here temporarily listening to those things, it's also temporary for that person if they decide. So you don't have to contain all that energy and hold on to it longer than you have to. I think that just being, and I mentioned it in my intro, just like seeing things from an observational standpoint, like understanding where someone's coming from, but also knowing that their problem isn't yours, because if they choose to, it doesn't have to be theirs either. So I would just say that if you have the tendency to hold on to people's energy, learning to release other people's baggage. You know, those things are only true for you when you decide that you're going to hold on to it and create a life story from it. Other than that, it's not your responsibility to bring yourself to a level that someone else is at and start a life there. You know, your responsibility is to maintain where you are and all the progress that you've made, and be true to that, and show them that you are trying to be the example of what it looks like when someone decides to not let all of those insecurities or all those traumas outweigh them. Because I noticed that a lot of people, when they want you to understand where they're coming from, they'll be kind of aggressive about it. Not aggressive like feel what I'm feeling, but aggressive in the way where they will say things like, you don't understand. And they'll get frustrated with you because they think that you don't understand just because you don't want to bring your energy down that low, because you know that you don't have to. So they get so mad at you just because they want you to be at their point of view, which is not possible. Like, no one can see anything through anyone's eyes, like unless you're making a movie. But you can't. So I'm going to talk about that in my next video. I already kind of made notes for that, so I will be talking about that. If you like this, then you can hit that thumbs up button. If you want to subscribe, that is awesome. Other than that, I will be seeing you in the next video. You take care.